All right, well, we're gonna do something a little bit different today, a little bit interesting. A lot of times we compare fighters to each other, and we look at resumes, and we look at names, obviously. But one thing I want to do today is I want to look at the total combined records of the opponents for Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua, and Tyson Fury. And I want to add up the wins and losses, which I already did. So I'm going to do a recap of the wins and losses that I recorded. And I'm going to break it down percentage wise on the total amount of wins and losses and draws of each of the opponents for Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, and Anthony Joshua. So when you look at Deontay Wilder, he's got 43 fights. And when you look at the opponents, the total wins of all the opponents he fought, they come to 764. When you look at the losses, they come to 226. And when you look at the draws, there's 27 draws. So the combined wins, losses, and draws of all of Deontay Wilder's opponents come out to 764 wins, 226 losses, 27 draws. So when you break that down percentage wise, 75% wins, 22% losses, and 2.6% draws. So now let's look at Fury. He's got 31 fights, and the total amount of wins of all his opponents come out to 670 wins. The losses are 181 losses and 15 draws. So break that down percentage wise, 77% wins, 20% losses, and 1.7% draws. Now, let's look at Anthony Joshua. Total of 24 fights. His opponents' total wins are 607. Their losses are 140, and the draws are 11. So percentage-wise, that's 80% wins, 18% losses, and 1.5% draws. Now, I know it's more than that. You have to look at quality of opposition and things like that. But let's just break it down this way, because you hear people say, "Oh, well, who did this guy fight? Who did that guy fight, or whatever?" And we talked about that earlier in the video. But percentage wise, Wilder does have the worst record, and then Fury and Joshua's got the best when you break it down percentage wise. Now you can argue who fought the better fighters, but when you break it down percentage wise, Wilder does have the worst record in terms of his opponent's win loss ratio. So when you want to break it down, win loss ratio of opponents, Wilder's win loss ratio of opponents is the worst, followed by Fury's, followed by Joshua's. Now you can argue who fought the better fighters. And if you really think about it, Luis Ortiz is the biggest win on Deontay Wilder's record. He was an older fighter. He had a WBA heavyweight championship. It was an interim championship. So when you look at it like that, I think you can argue that maybe Wilder, even in terms of name recognition, opponents, top 10 opponents, you could argue that even in that regard, his resume isn't as good as Fury's and Joshua's, because when you look at Fury, that Klitschko win, I think, is not only that Klitschko win, but that Klitschko win plus that Deontay Wilder win, in terms of significance, those two wins are the best two wins out of all three opponents, in my opinion. Okay, because Fury beat Klitschko. You can argue that wasn't his best, but it was pretty close to his best when you think about that. Because thank you so much, Black and Brown Boxing. I appreciate that. Because when you look at the significance of that win, with Klitschko being undefeated for 10 years, Klitschko never ever losing a decision, and then Fury being able to win by decision and give him the first loss that he's had in 10 years. That was a huge, huge victory. And then you look at Deontay Wilder, who arguably was thought of as the first or second best heavyweight in the world at the time. And then Fury knocks him out. And I thought he won the first fight as well. So you could argue he's got 2 wins over Deontay Wilder. So those 3 fights alone, I think, eclipse, in my opinion, anything that Anthony Joshua has done. Now, you can argue Anthony Joshua beat Klitschko too, but I think Tyson Fury's version was a better version. You can argue that Anthony Joshua beat a Joseph Parker. You can argue that he beat a Dillian White. So those are 3 solid wins. I mean, and then he did lose to Andrew Ruiz, but it is what it is. I mean, it happens to the best of them. So you can argue that possibly Joshua's resume in terms of name recognition and just overall accomplishments. Now, again, you could look at, well, yeah, he has the belts. He got more belts. But Fury actually had 3 belts as well when he first beat Klitschko. Okay, so at one time he had all of the belts except for the WBC belt. Same situation that Anthony Joshua is in right now. So you can, I mean, in my opinion, percentage-wise, collectively, like, you could say that maybe Joshua fought better opposition in its totality, meaning that he fought a lot of good fighters and he fought one great fighter. You can argue that Tyson Fury fought 2 great fighters and one good fighter in Derek Chisora twice, and the rest was less than stellar opposition. Whereas with Deontay Wilder, you can argue that the only great fighter that he's ever fought, he lost to. And the most recognizable win on his record is against a very good fighter. So at least Joshua did beat a great fighter in Vladimir Klitschko. Maybe not at his best, but he still beat him. Alexander Wilson, thank you so much. He said Fury was the best fighter Vlad fought, period. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. That's a fair assessment. I totally agree with that, Alexander Wilson. So percentage-wise, in terms of win-losses, the totality of opponents, you can make an argument that Joshua's got the best resume there because he fought a lot of good fighters. He fought Dillian White. He fought Joseph Parker. He fought, Vladimir Klitschko. Dominic Brazil's okay. So he's got a lot of good fighters on his resume. Carlos Takam, good fighter. Alexander Povetkin, very good fighter, former champion. Is he a great fighter? No, but he's a very good fighter. So in terms of the total level of opponents, you can argue that Fury and Joshua fought a lot of nondescript opponents, a lot of lower level opponents compared to to Joshua. But Fury does have the most impressive wins out of all 3, in my opinion. So it's kind of interesting the way you slice this up, because if you were to look at this in terms of like teams, how teams have have percentages when they, when they look at how many wins and losses they have, and the percentage, the winning percentage and stuff like that. If Wilder was a team, if Fury was a team, and Joshua was a team, and you broke down their wins and losses, Joshua would have the best record in terms of winning percentage versus the win-loss ratio, winning percentage, and Fury would be second and Wilder would be third. But then boxing isn't always broken down that way. It's not as simplistic as that. But then when you break down the numbers, go behind the numbers, I think that win that over Klitschko that Fury has, and that win over Wilder, and arguably twice in my opinion, I think that that kind of eclipses anything all three of them have done. Glucked up Gary. Hey Beebs, correct me if I'm wrong, but Luis Ortiz today in 2020 is younger than Vladimir Klitschko was when he fought both AJ and Fury, yet you keep mentioning Ortiz's age. When Fury beat Klitschko, he was 39, to be fair. So let's look at how old is Luis Ortiz now? I think he's 41. Let me see how old Luis Ortiz is now. And I still think Vladimir Klitschko is a better fighter than Luis Ortiz. I mean, you can argue that if you want, but yeah, Luis Ortiz is 41 right now. And when Wilder fought him in 2019, he was 40. And when he fought him in 2018, he was 38. So no, he wasn't younger. He wasn't younger than when Fury beat him. So I mean, I don't think that's a accurate comparison, to be perfectly honest with you. I got to be honest with you. So Joshua, I think, collectively has the best resume in terms of he has the least amount of nondescript opponents, the least amount of lower level opponents on his resume. I think if you look at it that way, but in terms of the best wins, definitely Fury's got the best wins. He's got the most high profile wins. But again, he fought a lot of on his record as lower level guys, whereas Joshua fought a lot of good guys, mid level guys, still top level guys. Takam, Povetkin, Parker, Vladimir Klitschko's very good win. And then you can argue too that Wilder fought guys like Brazil later in his career, while Anthony Joshua fought them earlier. So that's definitely something that you could look at too. So a lot of the guys that Wilder fought, he fought them way later in his career, whereas Joshua fought some of those lesser known guys, or those guys who aren't really great, but they're good, but not great. He fought them earlier on. So he took on those challenges earlier on in his career, whereas Wilder took them on later in his career after he was already established. So Krista Green makes a great point. He said, love to see Ortiz's indisputable birth certificate. I think we all would love to see that. I'm in the minority. I don't think Luis Ortiz looks 50. Everyone says he looks like he's 50. I disagree with that. I think he looks his age. I think you could say he's about 40 something years old. He looks like a 40-year-old. He looks like a middle-aged man to me. But a lot of people don't agree with me there. So I think it's very interesting that, in my opinion, Fury and Joshua do have a better resume than Wilder, even though Wilder has more fights. I mean, even when you break it down, the win-loss ratio, the win-loss ratio and the percentages of the win-loss ratio, Joshua's got the best. So he fought he fought the least amount. He fought the again, totality best opponents, but I think Fury's not that far behind. So it's like 80% winning percentage for Joshua, the total amount of victories for his opponents, 77 winning percentage for Fury, and 75% for Wilder. And the losing percentage is 22% for Wilder's opponents, the totality, 20% for Fury and 18% for Joshua. So it's pretty close, really. It's not like it's a huge difference between all three. They all did fight a lot of similar guys, but again, Wilder never fought a Dillian White, never fought a Alexander Povetkin, never fought a Joseph Parker. And Carlos Tacom's another solid one. Fury's got 2 quality wins over Derek Chisora, and Derek Chisora was really Derek Chisora is still a very good fighter. He's still a top 10 guy, but this is when he was really highly touted, and that was kind of like a 50-50 fight on paper. And Fury, Fury beat Chisora twice. Those are 2 solid wins. Steve Cunningham, former cruiserweight champion. I know he's not a heavyweight, but he's got a draw with Antonio Tarver. That's a decent win. I think when you look at Wilder, I mean, you could even look at that win against Stavern. Stavern really wasn't one of those great fighters. He was a good fighter, but he wasn't really a great fighter. So, yeah, Fury did beat Chisora when he was unbeaten. So, forget that Chisora to Joshua's sparring partner to White. What are you talking about? So Fury gets beating the same Chisora who lost to Pulev and Alanius, ignored Chisora 7 or 8 losses. Glocked up Gary. Fury gave Chisora his first loss. I think you're forgetting that. Fury beat him when he was undefeated. So it is what it is. I mean, we can go back and forth with this, but I think most people would agree with me over you, to be fair. I mean, it's clear that Wilder does have the lesser of the 3 resumes here. There's no argument. I don't think there's any argument. If you want to be fair about it, I just don't think I don't think there's an argument here to be made. To be perfectly honest with you. So, yeah. So Chisora top 10. Robert Helenius is top 10. Apparently, he beat Chisora already. Yeah, we're going around in circles. You're going around in circles. I mean, I already explained my point. If you don't want to give my point any credibility, then that's your decision. I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, Fury is the best, in my opinion. You could even argue in terms of significant wins. You can even argue that you could make an argument that Fury is above Joshua, but the flip side of that is Joshua fought consistently better fighters overall throughout the course of his career. So that you can make an argument either way. I think if you really break down the totality of the resume, Vitali beat Chisora before Fury. I don't believe so. I'll double check that. And if I'm wrong, I'll apologize. But I thought Fury beat him first. Then he lost to Vlad. Not Vlad, excuse me, Vitali after that. Let's take a look. But I think Fury's win over Klitschko and Deontay Wilder, those are phenomenal wins. And he was a huge under. See, Fury won. The big thing with Fury is he won when he wasn't supposed to win. Joshua's been favored over every single opponent he's ever fought, whereas Fury's been the underdog in his 3 biggest fights, and he came out on top. So, but like I said, I wouldn't rate Joshua over Fury, but I'm just looking at the resumes and you break them down, the totality of the quality of the resume, and you can make an argument that Joshua does have a better resume than Fury when you think of it that way, because Fury did fight Chisora, outside of Chisora, and Wilder and maybe Steve Cunningham. Those are three fighters. When you look at Joshua, you could look at Povetkin, you could look at Joseph Parker, you could look at Klitschko, you could look at Dillian White. You could look at a lot of the fighters that he fought. Dominic Brazil, decent. He fought for the title a few times. So let's look at Tyson Fury and let's research that question about Chisora. Let's see when he beat Chisora the first time. Yeah, Chisora when he fought him the first time was 14-0. Yeah, he was 14-0. And then when he fought him in the rematch, Chisora had 4 losses in the rematch. Yeah. So I think the names that stick out on Fury's record, Steve Cunningham's a decent win. Vladimir Klitschko is a huge win, and Deontay Wilder is a huge win. Now let's look at Anthony Joshua's resume. We'll break that down. Let's look at some of his key wins here. And you have to look at one thing you have to give Joshua credit for is they did somewhat fast track him. They did fast track him. They did fast track Joshua. He did achieve a lot in a short period of time. We can't take that away from him. So Povetkin, Joseph Parker, Takam. Look at this now. Look at this though. This is a good. You got to give credit for Joshua for this. You fought Klitschko, Takam, Joseph Parker, and Alexander Povetkin back to back to back to back. That's pretty impressive. That is pretty impressive. Charles Martin was undefeated when Joshua fought him. Dillian White was undefeated when Joshua fought him. Gary Cornish was undefeated when Joshua fought him. Again, these aren't huge wins, but they're very, very good wins. Like Gary Cornish was a solid fighter. Dillian White, very good fighter. Charles Martin's pretty solid fighter. Brazil, he was undefeated when Joshua fought him. At the time, he was a solid fighter. Molina's a tough out, and Joshua stopped him in 3. Klitschko was out for a while, but Joshua knocked him out. So Takam's a solid fighter. You saw what he did with Chisora, Joseph Parker again. So I think when you look at the total amount of opponents, I think there's more solid opponents in totality on Joshua's record compared with the other 2. So that's how you can make an argument that way. You can make an argument that way. And if you look, even some of these lower level guys, a lot of these lower level guys had some decent records too, on Joshua's resume. I think the problem with Deontay Wilder was it's hard to dispute the fact that he was moved very, very slowly. He was moved very, very slowly. So because of that, I think he's always going to be criticized because he was moved slowly. So fact of the matter is we don't want to jump all over Wilder now. We don't want to kick him in when he's down. But the best guy on his resume that he fought, he lost to him. Whereas the best guy on Joshua's resume, the best guy on Fury's resume, he beat him. He beat him. So we can go back and forth with this all day. But I think when you really look and break down the numbers, I think it's hard to dispute that Wilder does have the weakest resume out of all three of those fighters, in my opinion. You know, and I'm willing to debate anyone who disagrees with that. I'm willing to debate anyone who disagrees with that. Yeah, but again, White beat Joshua in the amateurs, and they were both at the same point in their career when they fought each other. They had very similar records, very similar resumes, so that was a good win. That was a good win for White. Excuse me, that was a good win for Joshua against White. So again, you have to look at put things in context. You can't sit there and say White wasn't world level. AJ wasn't world level either when AJ fought him. Neither one of them was world level at the time. Got Ralph in here. We'll let Ralph in here.
Yes.
Ralph, what's going on?
Yes. How you doing, baby? Good?
I'm good.
It's a sunny day over here in the UK. It is approximately 53 minutes past the hour of 5, of course, in the PM. Sun shining. I need to get out there and wash my car now. I've had my bike ride. It's time to get out there and wash that car. But I thought, you know what, Beeb's on. So show support for the Beeb, for the ringside, for the work they consistently, diligently put in on a day-to-day basis once a week. And I had to come here and support, bro.
Yeah. So what do you think of my argument? I mean,
it's a good argument.
You could argue that Fury has the two best wins out of all three, but again, Fury does have a lot of soft touches, whereas Joshua has some pretty solid names. So I think Joshua's been more consistent with his level of opposition, whereas Fury probably has the two best names, and even the fact that Fury's never even defended the title that he won, where at least Joshua did win the titles that he won.
He's never defended. He's never defended. I think, I don't know. I was away from boxing for a long time. I was in the MMA thing. And the comps, I was away from boxing for around 10 years. And the common belief is that you don't become a champion when you win the title. You become a champion when you defend a title. That's the belief over there. I don't know how it is, what the general consensus is over years has been. I don't know what that is over in boxing, but certainly in MMA, you're only considered a champion once you defend your championship. And unfortunately for Fury, even though he may be the best current heavyweight, he's never defended a championship.
So I think on the basis of consistency, the argument could be made that Joshua, in terms of consistency, probably has the best resume when you look at it that way. But when you look at signature wins and you look at the context of those signature wins, then you could make an argument in that regard. But it's hard to make a Wilder.
There's no argument for Wilder. For goodness sake, what's the argument for Wilder? What is the argument? The only person I could see making an argument for Wilder would be Mr. T. White, aka the Fight Doctor. T. White and I, we've been having some very interesting discussions over the last few days, as I'm sure you're aware, Beeb.
Yeah.
The only person I could see making any kind of argument for Wilder would be the Good Doctor. Only the Good Doctor could do that, and even then it wouldn't work. But you'd have to go for the Good Doctor. There is no argument for Wilder. Let's be honest. Let's be quite frank. There is no argument for Wilder. He fought subpar opposition for years. We talk about 5-year reign. What is the scalp? What is his signature scalp? What is in that 5 years of being WBC champion? How's my volume like?
Perfect.
Okay.
It's perfect.
Okay. So What is his signature win? What is Wilder's signature win?
Here comes the Wilder defender. Go ahead.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
Bring it, Kelly. Bring it.
You should know me, man. What's happening? I hear you over here, bro. What you guys talking about? Resumes or what?
Well,
we're trying to find reasons why Deontay Wilder's resume is so poor. I think that's what Beam's going to say.
Let me break this down, because what I did something very interesting, because we're always comparing these three guys' resumes, and you weren't on earlier, so I'm going to break down the total amount of wins and losses and draws of the records of all the fighters combined that each guy fought. So when you look at Wilder,
okay,
his opponents are 764 wins, 226 losses, and 27 draws, and that's in 43 fights. When you look at Fury's 31 fights, his opponents are 670 wins, 181 losses, and 15 draws, and Joshua is a 607 wins, 140 losses, and 11 draws. So when you break that down percentage-wise, Wilder's opponents have a 75% winning percentage and a 22% losing percentage and a 2.6% draws. Fury's have 77% winning, 20% losing, and 1.7% draws. And Joshua's got the best percentage, is 80% wins, 18% losses, and 1.5% draws. But then when you go deeper and you look at names, I think Joshua has a more consistent resume in terms of fighting good opponents. Whereas marquee wins, I think Fury's got the two best marquee wins, because I think that when Fury beat Klitschko, in my opinion, it was more significant, and he beat Wilder in an emphatic fashion. So I think, his two wins are huge. I think nothing eclipses that. But the fact that Fury did never defend his titles that he won the first time and now, I think that you can make an argument that Joshua at least defended his titles a couple times and regained his title too. So, I think Fury.
So who do you think got the better resume between the three of them?
I think, to be fair, when you look at consistency in the resume, I think you can argue that Joshua has the more consistent resume. But then when you look at the two most impressive victories, I think Fury has it in that regard. But I can't make an argument for Wilder on anything here.
Damn.
So that's why I got you here. I get you here to try to do that for me.
We need you, Kelly. We need you.
We need the other side of the coin here.
We need the other side, Kelly.
I mean, what are we like comparing? Who would win? I mean, obviously Tyson Fury.
We're looking by opponents.
We're looking at
all three fighters.
Yeah, we're looking at the resumes. Who's got the best resume? Who's got the best wins? We're chopping them down. So far, Wilder's in third place, Kelly. You got to bump him up, bro.
Oh man. Oh man. I think that's even hard for me to do, to be honest with you. Damn, man. The shit. I mean, to me, okay, Tyson Fury, he beat Klitschko, he beat Wilder, Joshua, he beat Klitschko, but I mean, like, I don't know, man. I have to say, like, Fury might be. I think Fury got the better resume. He beat the two best dudes, Klitschko and Wilder, and everybody else is like, I mean, where you rank everybody else, though? That's the whole thing. Like, where you guys rank these opponents that they faced? I mean, like, they're not that good. Well, I mean, even if you say, let's say you're going to give it to Joshua, right, his resume. Yeah. Be honest.
Yeah.
They're not that good, man. It's
They are good because
They're not that good.
Of course they are. You're talking about top 10 guys back to back to back to back. You're looking at the likes of Povetkin. You're looking at the likes of Joseph.
Povetkin ain't that good. Joseph Parker's not that good. Come on, man.
Hold on, man. Hold on.
You guys putting the 10 on the 2. That's the extras, okay?
Hold on,
You're
man.
putting the 10 on the 2, man.
Let the Rafi speak, bro. Let the Rafi speak.
Okay, I've been listening though. Go ahead.
You got him fired up. I got him fired up,
man. I got the Cali King fired up, bro. Well, you know, when you
I'm being real, man.
Cali, it's my turn.
Okay. All right, do your thing, homie.
Let me do my thing, bro. Give me some space on the dance floor, bro. Let me do my thing.
Go ahead, talk that blase. Talk that blase.
Let's get to it, bro. Let's get to it, bro. So, when you look at Joshua, you're looking at opponents like Povetkin. You know, they don't want that work from Povetkin. Who wants that? Who wants that work from Povetkin? You're looking at Povetkin. You're looking at the heavy hands of the Ruiz. You're looking at Povetkin being an ex-champ, WBC champ, ex-Olympic. Well, you're never ex-Olympic gold medalist, Olympic gold medalist. You're looking at him defeating the champ that was Joseph Parker. Your boy there, Wilder, had the opportunity to fight Parker first, didn't take it. Offered him chump change, didn't take it. Parker came over to the UK, got $6 million. Got $6 million for facing Joshua. Have you seen his house now? Damn, not as good as Charlo's, but it looks good. Who else we got going down? We got Ruiz. We got Povetkin. We got Parker. Who else we got on that list, Beeb? Refresh my memory.
We got Brazil.
Yeah.
Who's the other guy?
Garbage, but still, yeah.
Who's the other guy that we got Charles Martin,
but he was the champ at the time, he was. Hold on, no, I haven't finished.
It sounds good, man. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Hey, I ain't finished, bro. Charles Martin was, I think, the IBF champion at the time. He was
Eric Molina.
Hold on, yes, sorry. He was Molina.
Oh my God, he said
I ain't gonna mention
Eric Molina too. Look,
but you see,
y'all tripping, man.
Hold on, I haven't finished. So
undefeated Dillian White, Dillian White, a guy who beat him in the amateurs.
Beat him in the amateurs, came back, got his revenge. A man that Deontay Wilder avoided for like 2-3 years is being mandatory now, something like that. You know, so it's hard. Joshua's been fighting guys who. Some of the guys probably the most avoided, Andy Ruiz. Nobody wants Andy Ruiz because they know what he can do. Povetkin. Nobody really wants Povetkin. When was the last time an American guy fought Povetkin? Nobody really wants Povetkin because they know what he can do. So, Joshua fighting these guys. Joseph Parker, give him credit. He's credited as the toughest jaw in the heavyweights right now. So he's fighting the guys people don't want to fight. Top 10 guys people don't want to fight. Top 10 guys, Deontay Wilder, he won't even put their names in his mouth. He don't want it. And yeah, man, it's bad out there.
Oh no, man.
Bad out there for Wilder.
I mean, it sound good. It sound good. You over there putting the extras on it, but I just don't really think those guys that you named are like that good is what you made it sound like. You know what I'm saying? It sounds good, though.
Who are the comparable
I'm not convinced, man.
Who are the comparable guys on Wilder's record, my friend?
I mean, Wilder, them dudes not that good neither. You know what I'm saying? Tyson Fury, him too. I'm just honestly saying it ain't even like no talent like that for you to be putting like all these extras into all this different stuff. I don't see the talent that you seeing, but I guess you know what I'm saying. It sound good, but
who is the equivalent to Wilder's record, bro? That's all I'm asking you. Who's the equivalent to a Povetkin on Wilder's record? Who is the equivalent to a Joseph Parker, toughest chin in heavyweight?
I mean, for sure, Ortiz could beat Povetkin, man. For sure, Ortiz would have beat Joseph Parker. I mean, you guys got to, man, come on, man. Come on, dude.
You cannot be serious.
hold on. Why are you not gonna give him Ortiz, man? Why is it
No,
that you just don't want to give it to
I'll
him?
give him Ortiz. I'll give him Ortiz. Okay, I'll give him Ortiz.
Okay, so that's a good win. And then he fought against when he got his belt. He was okay. Bermain Stavern. I sat there and watched when they had all the hype on Bermain Stavern. Okay, he was Wilder was the underdog in that fight. Okay, so give him that fight. That's the one where he won his belt. Give him that. You know what I'm saying? Give him that.
Stavern?
Yeah, give him Stavern.
Yeah. We give him
Stavern.
I think
Anthony Joshua, them dudes, you giving him. Okay, so, but I'm honestly saying these dudes
acknowledge that Stavern is the first top 10 win. I'm giving him credit for that. I think it's widely acknowledged that Stavern is Wilder's first top 10 win. So I'm giving him that to an extent. So we good. Carry on.
I mean, I'm just honestly saying, there's not a lot of talent in the heavyweight division, for you to be putting the extras on it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's different. Maybe it's just different. UK, you know what I'm saying? Over the pond, everything's different. You putting the extras on it, but I'm just not feeling them extras with them dudes. I mean, like, I'll say Bermain Stavern, Ortiz, those was good wins. You know what I'm saying? Those are decent wins. I'll give Joshua the Klitschko win. I'll give that to him. You know what I'm saying? But the Ruiz,
the Povetkin,
look, I'll give him the Ruiz fight. I'll give it to him for coming back. But I mean, come on, man. We knew that, Ruiz was a massive underdog coming into that fight. Nobody gave no Ruiz a chance. So it ain't like Ruiz, Anthony Joshua was going up against this top contender type of dude that it would have been a 50-50 fight. That wasn't the scenario. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, Joshua got a good win with Klitschko. The other dudes, I don't know, man. I can't just say these are just, everybody's resume is just fucked up, is what I'm really trying to say, okay?
He's saying all of them are trash resumes, man.
I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not going to disrespect the fighters and say that they trash. I'm just honestly speaking that there is not a lot of talent in that heavyweight division to just be like, oh, you comparing it. I'm like, I'm not feeling it. You know what I'm saying? But I will give one thing. I will give Tyson Fury the Klitschko win. You know what I'm saying? And then as well as the Wilder win. Those are big wins. You know what I'm saying? Joshua.
Undefeated Chisora.
Yep.
Steve Cunningham was a beast.
Oh, my God. Okay. My God, man. Come on.
Can I put something in perspective real quick?
Yeah.
Let Red Glove.
This won't take long.
No, go ahead. You got the floor.
You got the floor.
I think that AJ also deserves credit for Parker, and let me tell you why.
Hell yeah.
If we're gonna give Wilder credit for Ortiz, whose best win is Jennings, why wouldn't we give AJ credit for Parker, who beat Ruiz, who is more accomplished than he's more accomplished than Jennings. I think we can agree that he's more accomplished than Jennings. So I'll give
him Joseph Parker, man. I'll give him Joseph Parker. You know what I'm saying? Because he did have a belt. I'll give him Joseph Parker. You can have him.
I gotta give him Dillian. I gotta give him Dillian White too, because they were both undefeated when they fought.
Oh man.
I gotta give him
Look. I think you guys are misunderstanding me, man. I'm not saying what you guys think I'm saying. I'm saying you guys really think that Joseph Parker is talented. You really think Dillian White is talented. I mean, even in the beginning of his career, you was really watching Joseph Parker and looking at his talent. You was really looking at Chisora, Dillian White, these dudes saying these are some talented dudes. These can be the future of the heavy. I mean, come on, man. I'm like honestly saying these dudes are not that. Who? Which one?
Joseph Parker.
At both Joseph Parker
Dillian White.
and Dillian White.
Joseph Parker became the WBO champion, and Dillian White has been recognized number one. Hold on, recognized number one in the contender in the WBC for like going on 3 years. How the hell is that not significant?
I think that Povetkin's always a threat too. He's dangerous, man.
Who?
Povetkin. I think he's dangerous.
Of course.
I had him up on the scorecards before. Out. That's just my.
What the hell?
Yeah, I mean, I've been paying attention to Ajagba for a while too. I mean, I know he doesn't have that many fights, but I mean, before a lot of other people were talking about him, and I'm gonna say it right now. I'm looking out for her.
I mean, but Ajagba, when you can look at Ajagba, and that's obvious talent. Daniel Dubois and Ajagba, that's obvious. Okay, you can obviously look at these guys and obviously say they're talented, just like everybody else will say the same exact thing. But Joseph Parker, I mean, come on, man. I don't know. Maybe you guys have a better eye than I do, but I wouldn't have looked at no Joseph Parker and been like, oh, this guy is going to be the future. I'll honestly say Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, you know what I'm saying? When I look at those guys, it's a big difference between the other guys. Even Wilder, you know what I'm saying? When I look at with Tyson Fury, Wilder, and Anthony Joshua, you can see these guys have just this different kind of talent. You know what I'm saying? And then you got the young prospects. But I mean, Joseph Parker, I mean, like, oh man, I don't know what to say, man. I don't know. I mean, you feel like, let me ask you this. Do you feel like Joseph Parker has lived up to what you've seen, or do you think he's let you down?
Well, he became champion, didn't he? He became champion, and he beat Andy Ruiz, one of the most avoided guys in the heavyweight division. Joseph Parker himself, nobody wants it with Joseph Parker because he's got reputedly the toughest jaw in the heavyweight division right now.
He almost knocked out Dillian White too.
Almost knocked out Dillian White too, and Dillian White's been the number one ranked contender in the WBC or thereabouts for the last 3 years. So you're talking about high caliber there. When you talk about Joseph Parker, you talk about Dillian White, you talk about Povetkin. These are all either ex-world champions, Olympic gold medalists. We're talking about the cream of the crop. So in fact, Povetkin, Dillian White, Joseph Parker, those are all top guys in the division for the last 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. In Povetkin, how long Povetkin been a top guy? Probably 10 years.
Yeah, Joseph Parker was known as being a big puncher for a while, like way before he got a belt. Like that's what I'm saying. Like me, I actually been watching out for Parker. You know, there was a time where I was watching out for Price, but we know what what happened with him. But one thing I will say is this: I was also looking out for Charles Martin, and I won't give AJ too much credit for him though, because he did let me down. So I'll give you that.
He let all of us down. But here, check this, Red Glove, Habib and Cali. Remember when the Joshua and Charles Martin fight was announced? That was a 50-50 fight. Nobody knew what was going to happen. Tell me I'm wrong.
It was. You're talking about AJ and White,
Charles
right?
Charles Martin.
Oh, Charles Martin.
Nobody knew what was going to happen. There was.
I'm gonna be honest. I thought AJ was gonna beat him. However,
I thought AJ was gonna knock him out.
Yeah, but I didn't think it was gonna be that quick though. I thought it was gonna go into deeper rounds than it did.
Yeah, because hold on, we're missing one. Hold on.
I think he jumped off.
Damn, Kelly, you can't do that. Kelly, you can't.
He was actually very reasonable, though. I have to say, Kelly.
Oh, he's cool.
He was very, very reasonable.
He's cool.
He's cool. But as far as the it's cool. As far as the Charles Martin versus Joshua, a lot of people, if you go back to the time, pull up the articles at the time. A lot of people had Charles Martin winning that. I remember John Fury, Tyson Fury's father, says that Charles Martin's going to wreck Joshua. Charles Martin's a southpaw. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes. Said the Southpaw style, Joshua won't be able to handle it, etc., etc. He's not going to beat the IBF champ. So yeah, if you pull up the clips, the old articles, a lot of people were going for Charles Martin there. So we can't forget that. But as far as Povetkin's concerned, as far as Parker's concerned, as far as Dillian White's concerned, these are all guys who were top of the tree. Povetkin for 10 years straight. 10 years straight. And the task is for a Wilder fan to come and show us the comparable wins on Wilder's records, and we're having difficulty in achieving that. Beeb,
I think it's tough. It's tough. Brian got bumped out. He said he's going to jump back in. I told him I put the link back in the chat. So
all right.
He got bumped out. I don't know how he got bumped out, but
I will also agree that there is a lack of talent somewhat, but it's not to the degree that he was saying. And that's just a difference of opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying he's wrong. I just disagree with that sentiment. But I do agree that it's not like how it was in the 80s and the 90s and past eras. If you notice, there's only 3 guys that really get talked about consistently. And then you got like another 3 guys who kind of get brought up to a lesser extent. And then that's about it. Nobody's really talking about, like David Price and even Povetkin, that he's not even talked about as much. And it's a shame because he's on his way out. I think his best days are behind him. But so I do agree to an extent about that.
Well, I mean, I just hope like Dubois and Ajaba can kind of bring up the rear and carry the torch. I think hopefully these guys can do something. Joe Joyce, I'm not about Joe Joyce, but we'll see what we do have some promising guys coming up, man. So we'll see what happens with.
Yeah.
But
my only thing about Joyce is he's already 37. So
yeah, I'm not Joyce, but Josh still got a lot of time left. Fury's got a lot of time left. Wilder's kind of turning the corner a little bit. He's going to be soon, and he suffered a lot of injuries. So I think Fury will beat him, and I think once Fury beats him, I think he's. I don't think he's going to come to the Fury.
I think once Fury beats him again in the third fight, he's toast. Wilder's toast.
Yeah. See Dillian White get a shot at Fury.
I'd love to see Dillian White still get a chance at Deontay Wilder, but like I said, once Fury disposes of him, which he will, in short order, quicker than the last time, then it should be Fury White. White's been waiting a long time. He deserves it. He's overdue. So let's get it on. Fury beats Wilder. Fury has a scrap with Dillian White after that, and the best man gets Joshua. How you like that?
I agree. I think it's a good piece of events. Right?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Why not? I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem
with that. Is it just me, or is Beeb cracking up every other word?
Am I cracking up now? Am I in and out?
Now.
Oh, okay, maybe because I was pulling away from the mic. I got to keep my face.
Yeah.
At times, I'm pulling away from the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly think that we might even have better talent than what we realize. The problem is they're not fighting each other like they should be. Like it bugs me that people still say that White hasn't done anything and he's a hype job. It's like White has some really good wins. Like I had to question how genuine you're being when you say that. Either that or you just haven't really been paying attention to the heavyweight division.
Yeah, White's got some solid wins, which is Park definitely.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, B, you're dropping out every other word. There's something wrong with
the internet. Maybe the internet. Maybe it's the internet.
Sometimes it's better than others.
Yeah.
I'm wondering. I think I've been issues with the internet in the area. Like complaining that the internet's down.
Yeah, you're chopping out every other word. I just thought I should tell you that, so on the replay.
Okay.
Yeah, what was the last point? The last point. Yeah, I mean, basically, Wilder's resume, it's hands, it's heads and shoulders below Fury, and Fury's resume is not as good as Joshua, even though he does have wins over two. Well, a Hall of Famer in Vladimir Klitschko, and a 5-year champ with a weak resume in Deontay Wilder. That's my assessment of it.
Yeah, that's fair. And you also take into account, he ended 2 reigns.
Yeah.
Vlad, he went like around 10 years without losing a fight.
Yeah,
and
it was a 7-year streak and a 3-year streak for Vlad. Yeah.
And then for Wilder, he had it was like a 10 or 11 defense streak, defenses under his belt. So
yes.
I give Wilder credit for that. I'm just not gonna make it seem like he's better than Holyfield or some of these other guys that I hear a lot of these fans trying to compare to. And it's like I said, I do think that this era could possibly have better talent than what we realize.
Mm-hmm.
And that the same could be said for just about any division. There's a lot of divisions that they're having that same problem. All the top guys are not really fighting each other. When you got Danny Garcia fighting guys like Red Cat, when he could be fighting Errol Spence or and I say Errol Spence, not considering the car crash. I understand after that it's a little bit different, but still, you got other guys that were available like Terrence Crawford. That Sean Porter, I'm sure, would have fought him again. Sean Porter seems to take on all comers. Manny Pacquiao. I mean, there's no reason why that should be happening. I understand, especially with as an active as these guys are. If they were a little bit more active, then I would say, yeah, they're definitely going to take, stay busy fights. But when you're only fighting once a year, what are you taking stay busy fights at all? You ain't staying busy.
Who do you think Pacquiao is next?
I don't know. I would love to see him fight Crawford. That way, it's like a even playing field, 2 belts and 2 belts for undisputed. Whoever wins that fight between him and Terrence Crawford, and then hopefully, praying that Errol Spence is, because we don't know what effects that car accident had on him, but hopefully he was blessed more than what we know, which is with his life. Hopefully he's blessed with for most of his talents as well. Because if Crawford beats him, especially if he beats him easily, or Pacquiao, either one, anybody who beats Errol Spence from this point on, if they beat him easily, you can always ask that question. Well, what would have happened if it was before the car crash?
Yeah, absolutely. But you see, an explanation. You see, I'm gonna make a Wilder. I'm gonna help the Wilder fans out here. I'm gonna make an argument. I'm gonna hop over the fence and make an argument for Wilder that the Wilder fans haven't been able to do so far. Okay, Beep, Redgov, did you see that feature of I think it's Jamal? Was it Jamal Charlo with his house when he took the camera?
Beautiful house, right? Beautiful house.
Oh my God! Now,
Beautiful.
if you're making money like that, fighting not the top guys like Charlo, if you can make money like that under the PBC model, you can make money like that. Then that's an argument for Wilder. That's an argument for Wilder. That's an argument to say, listen, PBC guys can make money not fighting the top guys, good money. So why should we? Why should we mess up our money by risking it against the top guys? Beep. That's an argument for the PBC and an argument for Wilder.
Yeah, I think the money is there in boxing. Definitely PBC fighters do get paid pretty well. Even Eddie Hearn pays his fighters pretty well too. Joshua's getting paid pretty well. I don't know what he's paying Dillian White, but There's money to be made in boxing. I think because of you got outlets like ESPN, you got outlets like the Zone, and you got outlets like Fox who are going to be willing to put up the big dollars. And you can say what you want about the pay-per-view numbers, but because they're so expensive, I think these guys are still getting paid regardless.
These
You want to hear
guys,
my counter argument, Raf?
go ahead, bro.
Here's what my counter argument would be.
Yeah.
As fans, we should want the best fights.
Yes.
These boxers, they pay managers to get them the most money. We should leave that to those guys because they get paid to do it, and we're over here trying to do that for them for free.
Yeah.
That would be my counter argument.
Yeah.
And it's a good.
Go on, Beep.
I would say it's a good counter argument, from a fan's perspective,
Hell yeah. Hell
It's
yeah.
hard to argue against that.
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, that's not my argument. I'm hopping the fence over to the Wilder camp now. I'm hopping over into the Wilder camp to help them out, and the argument for them is that, listen, Deontay didn't need to fight the best guys because he's getting paid by Uncle Al. He's getting paid in full by Uncle Al fighting the, not the best guys. And you know what? I could stay here all day, but I got a car to wash. I got the sunshine out there. The sun fades out. I got to bid you guys, Beeb, Red Glove Militant Chat. Big up to going out to the Georgie Porgy, giving out to Scant Pants and too many to mention. But thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Take care. I'm out.
Well, I'm gonna before I head out, I'm gonna ask Red Glove one question. I think that Deontay Wilder got found out. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think he did. I think he got found out a little bit. I don't want to take too much away from Deontay Wilder because I do think he has accomplishments. And I'd be lying if I said he doesn't have his haters. But he also does have a little bit of overhype behind him. And I think a lot of that got exposed. A lot of these guys who are having a hard time dealing with him losing is because they had this perception that he was invincible. And now that invincibility perception is gone. So, yeah, I do think that he got found out, at least that he's not invincible. He is beatable. He can try making it on being perfect for that 1 second, but what if that 1 second isn't good enough? I'll leave it at that. I also had a counter argument for Rap, but he left. All I was going to say, I just want to throw this out there. My response to that would just be, but the guy said that he wanted one face, one name. And there's nothing that, other than the PBC allowing him to take those fights that'll make him undisputed. Outside of that, nothing else is gonna allow them to do that for him.
So basically, at the end of the day, it's always about money and everything else is just fluff, really, when it comes down to what these fighters say. And I think if we've been following the sport long enough, I think we can kind of figure that out. So you rank these three guys now. He would be number one, but who's number 2 and 3?
Number 2 and 3. I mean, me personally, I can't even say who's number 1 because I would. To me, Fury and AJ have to fight each other. But if you told me I had to pick, just for the sake of argument, right now I would have to put Fury at number 1, AJ at number 2, and Wilder at number 3.
Now, before the loss, how would you have had it? Before Wilder's loss, how would you have had it before that? Would you have had Wilder ahead of AJ, or would the AJ ahead of Wilder before Wilder?
Before that, just based off of accomplishments, because Wilder was undefeated, and so was Fury and AJ had lost. I would put them at above him. And I same thing. I wouldn't have been able to tell you who was number 1 just because this is before Fury beat him. So that's how I had it. But now that you take into account that they AJ both have and Wilder have a loss each, that kind of puts that to rest. Then we go to the resume, and which you could have brought in the resume before, but you look at the resume and you see that AJ's is definitely far better than Wilder's. So that's where I'm at with that. But those are my logics for why I picked now and before the loss.
Yeah. So let's switch topic for 1 second here. I got your opinion on this. Two-part question. So number one, when do you think we'll see boxing back again? And number two, why is it possible for the WWE to go down to Florida and hold live events in their performance center, and why boxing do that? It's such a difficult task to be able to WWE's doing. Bob Arum's talked about. Why haven't they done it yet, and why would it be a problem, in your opinion, if you think it is a problem?
The reason why I think they haven't done it yet is I think they're holding out because they really want to see if they can get ticket sales. I honestly think that's what it is, and that goes for all of the top promoters. I think they're all equally as greedy. I don't trust one more than the other, really. I do have different opinions as to who I think is doing better, but as far as like trust, I have the same amount of trust for all of them, to be honest. That being said, I think that's what it is. I think they, if they really wanted to, I'm in Florida, so it's interesting you brought that to me. But any of those guys, I think, could have came down here and try to make something, work, or even in another state, I don't see why it couldn't happen. But that's my theory. I think they have the ability to, but they're not putting their best foot forward because they want to hold out and see if they could still get those ticket sales.
So so in your opinion, you're saying that by doing what the WWE's doing wouldn't be enough for them. They want to hold out and see if the whole thing could open up and they could actually get tickets, because obviously what the WWE is doing is they're getting money from the USA Network. I mean, they're getting money to be able to they're selling the rights to their show to the USA Network, and that's how they're generating their revenue. That's how they're getting paid, and that's how they're paying the wrestlers. And I would assume that I wouldn't assume. I would say that would be the same way that the promoters and the boxers would be getting paid. But you're saying that the promoters don't want to do that for the sake of possibly leaving money on the table with ticket sales. So you're saying that you don't think that would be enough. Am I correct? Is that your assessment of the situation?
Yeah, I think it won't be enough for them because keep in mind, you got these companies that make, billions a year, every year, and they still, they have their own projections, and because it didn't meet the projections they had, they consider it a failure, even though we take that money. But also the other thing is, I feel like the WWE probably makes more money in regards to things like merchandise.
Yes.
Whereas in boxing, I don't think they make anywhere near as much as the WWE. So that can help compensate for that. And that's the thing, out of sight, out of mind. When you're not making that much money on your merchandise anyways, it doesn't give you that initiative to be in the public eye as much, especially when you're relying on ticket sales. Whereas the WWE, because they have a lot more guys who have been successful in Hollywood, they're definitely in the public eye a lot more. They appeal to children a lot more than boxing does. I think for every boxing fan, child fan, you're gonna have at least 50 wrestling fans. You know what I'm saying? So I think the merchandise is really what holds them together, and not boxing.
So by doing what the WWE is doing and doing it in that same fashion, they wouldn't be able to generate the revenue that they would need to pay the fighters what the fighters are probably used to getting. Is that what you're saying would be a problem doing it that way? There would be a lost revenue.
That's
Okay.
Yeah,
That
that's my
makes sense.
theory. That's my
That
theory.
makes sense. Because Vince is a billionaire. I mean, he's a freaking billionaire. He's been doing it for a long time. And like you said, they could offset the loss with the merchandise, where there's no way for boxing to offset the loss probably. If you think about
Yeah,
it,
it would be a lot harder for them.
it'd be a lot harder to offset the loss.
Yeah, because you can correct me if I'm wrong, because or maybe you might not even know this. When it comes to the WWE, I think if you pay for their monthly,
Oh yeah, they got
um,
network too. Yeah, they got that network you pay for too. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that's
but I
another thing.
think if I'm not mistaken, I think that also covers their pay-per-views. Like, I think if you pay for that, you don't have to pay for pay-per-views. I think that's included. And that's because it's like one big company, right? Whereas with boxing, you got the PBC, then you got all these other promoters that are trying to work together. Some of them are, top rank. They're on TV, they're on app, and they do pay-per-view. Then you
Yeah,
got PBC, who only does TV and pay-per-view, and then
yeah.
you got the Zone that only does the app. So it's a much more complicated situation with them. If it was all one company, then I think it would be easier. But because we're dealing with so many different promotions, and we're not even bringing up Frank Warren
Yeah.
and some of these lesser known promotions, just talking about the top three guys, it that alone makes it complicated.
So yeah, so plus the WWE tapes their events, and boxing would be wanting to put their events on live. So it's a totally different dynamic. I get totally where you're coming from, but let's switch back to Deontay Wilder. Obviously, if it's Wilder, because Wilder's coming off an injury, he just had surgery, so the layoff's going to be for Wilder. But how is this going to mind? Because when Fury too much downtime, he gets depressed. Psychologically, things start to unravel. Is there a risk or a danger in seeing Fury come out the wear in this situation, layoff and having to stay home and not be able to probably train the way he wants to train? How's he keeping himself? Will he go back into a depressive type stupor like he did before?
I don't think he will. I've seen him on Instagram, and he seems to be in good spirits. Now, keep in mind that he could just be a good actor,
Yeah. Could be
but
having a good day or something. Yeah.
yeah, but he does at this time, he does appear to have his head on straight. He doesn't seem to be suffering depression from the isolation or anything like that. But
Yeah.
that could change, over time. We don't know how long this is going to last. So if it lasts a whole lot longer, that could be the case. Now he does have youth on his side, not by a whole lot, but I do know he's at least, I think he's like 2 or 3 years younger than Deontay Wilder, which could make all the difference given the fact that Deontay Wilder is 34, going on 35. So
Yeah.
it, but yeah, I do definitely think that could be a possibility. He could relapse, and I think that's actually the reason why his father said that he should go ahead and retire was
Yeah.
because he's afraid that could happen to him. And now that we have this pandemic, that actually does increase the possibility of it happening, depending on how long this pandemic lasts.
You know what fight I was really disappointed in not being able to see was the Teofimo Lopez versus Vasily Lomachenko fight. I was so looking forward to that because I was picking Lopez, and I just wanted to see that fight. Oh my god, and the Joe Joyce Daniel Dubois fight too. But I really wanted to see the Teofimo Lopez fight. What fight were you really looking forward to, and you're very disappointed now that we haven't been able to see it because of this whole crisis situation?
That was the one because it was on the brink of being made, and
Well, it was scheduled for
with it,
April. It was all set for April. And
yeah.
then
You
so
see, because like Crawford and Spence, we don't know when that's gonna happen.
yeah, that's not gonna happen anytime soon.
Undisputed in heavyweight, we don't know when that's gonna happen. This was something that we had a good grasp on. We had a very good idea of when it was gonna happen, And it is a good possibility it would have already happened by now. Like you said, it was set for April. We're in the latter end of the month, you know. Um, but that's the one, you know. It's kind of hard for me to like really get excited about a fight that I don't know if it's even going to happen. I don't even know if it's going to go down. And I always set my expectations because even when a good fight is set, that's not even guaranteed to happen. Look what happened with Andre and Billy Joe Saunders.
Yeah,
I was so
yeah.
excited about that, and not long before the fight, he had to get a replacement because of the testing. So but because that was like the most first off, it was just a good fight in general. It's not just because it was already pretty much set and ready to go, but it legitimately is a good fight. You got an older, seasoned, very quick on his feet, very skillful boxer versus the younger but bigger boxer who's no slouch in the skill department himself and who's very confident in himself. That's one of the things with Lomachenko, with a lot of his victories, you kind of question the confidence of his opponents in some of those cases. So, when you have this kind of dynamic, it's kind of hard to say who would win. You pick a side, but you don't feel like you got in the bag. You know what I'm saying? And those are the best fights. So yeah, that's the one I was most looking forward to that, ended up, we could still get it, but we just don't know when it's up in the air, just like all these other fights were before the pandemic.
And this happened. It was supposed to be Billy Joe Saunders versus Canelo May, and then Canelo was going to fight. If he was able to beat Saunders, he was going to fight Golovkin in September. Now, you think when boxing starts back up again, you think they're just going to circumvent that Billy Joe Saunders fight and go right to Golovkin, or you still think the Saunders Canelo fight happens before the Golovkin fight does?
I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen there, and this is why. I'm hearing that I forget Triple G's trainer's name at the moment, but I heard that he really doesn't want him to take that Canelo fight, and
oh wow,
so yeah, so I'm not sure what's going to happen there. Like, to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if Canelo just didn't fight either of them, and we end up getting him versus someone else. I think Caleb Plant tweeted to him, if I'm not mistaken, saying that he's good to go. And then there was also Bivol, who said he's willing to come down and that money is not an issue. So, it wouldn't surprise me if he ended up fighting one of those guys instead, just because of what's going on with Triple G, and then this whole thing with Billy Joe Saunders, where even though I know he could still technically fight if he gets his license suspended over in the UK, there's a good chance that, De La Hoya is like, you know what, I don't want to deal with that, that train wreck of a PR mess he got going on.
Yeah, it's a big mess.
Leave it to Billy Joe Saunders to, because that's the second time.
He's a freaking knucklehead, bro. He's a knucklehead. All right, man. Anything else you want to talk about before we head out of here? Any last words for you?
I just want to say thank you for having me. I try to tune in whenever I can.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I try to support the channels that I watch as much as I can. So sometimes you go live and it's not a good time, but whenever you're live and I'm available, I tune in and I enjoy the content.
I appreciate it. So what's going on with you? You've been you working from home now, or you've been just kind of laying low? How's the situation over there for you?
For me, with my situation, I am working from home. I've actually worked from home for many years, actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that part didn't affect me so much. To me, it's just the cabin fever, because even when I was, even before this, on my days off, I like to go out and do stuff. Well, now I really can't. for me, going to get the groceries is a trip. It's a good time.
Yeah, it's almost like an event. Like, you know, something. I ran out of stuff today. I get to go to the store.
Yeah, I almost feel like that song by Smashing Pumpkins, you know, despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in the cage. That's
Yeah,
how I
yeah,
feel. It's like I got all
yeah,
this energy to get out, but
yeah.
I have to
Oh,
stay put.
but aren't they relieving a lot of the restrictions down there, or still, guys are still
It,
locked down tight?
they are a little bit, but it's not enough to really like because we did have curfew which got lifted last week. So
Yeah,
it's eased up a little bit, but there's still like a lot. There's still ways to go. Like I live like an hour away from Disney World. They don't know when they're gonna be going, you know, running back up.
those
Um,
people must be going crazy down there.
yeah, that's a whole
That's
mess
tough.
over there.
That sucks
Yeah,
for them, huh?
I mean,
That
there was
sucks.
people. They got that program where they got people from all over the world who come and work for them for like a season, and they all got terminated. Like,
Sucks.
you know, and that's like a whole process to get approved for that and all that. And it's, you know, the economy here, I think it's hurting somewhat. I heard over in Puerto Rico, they're not even allowing you to buy anything unless it's essential. So if you go to Walmart and like, let's say you want to go and buy a DVD, you can't. They got it all blocked off. And I'm like, okay, for the people who can afford to do that, you should let them do that because they're the ones who are gonna help uphold the economy. You're kind of
Yep.
crippling your own economy just for the sake of it. You know,
Yeah.
you got to let people be responsible for what's in their budget. You know, they know whether or not they can buy that DVD or buy a PlayStation or whatever it is. You know, me, I can't do that right now. If it ain't food, if it ain't bills, I ain't spending money on it.
I got you. I got you. All right, man. Well, it's nice having you. Stay safe out there, and thanks for tuning in, and thanks for jumping and continue to follow the
No
show.
problem. Thank you,
We really
Jay.
appreciate the support, man. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day, man. Be good.
All right, you too. Peace.